Welcome to Boulder Community Health's virtual wellness series, Be Well. I'm Gina DeNucci, your host, and in today's episode, we get tips for getting a good night's sleep. Learn how to make a simple Mediterranean feast just in time for the holidays, and discover the many benefits of AcuDetox. And be sure to stay with us until the end for the opportunity to win a complimentary massage from Bodywork for Liberation in Lafayette. Let's begin. I'm here today with Dr. Thomas Miner, and today we're going to talk about tips for getting a better night's sleep.
Hi, I'm Dr. Thomas Miner, and I'm a board-certified sleep physician at Boulder Community Health. My job is to help patients who are having difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep or have other sleep problems like sleep apnea get better sleep.
Let's lay the foundation. What is a good process for preparing oneself to go to sleep?
The most important thing is to have a process that's consistent, the same every night, and that you start at the same time every night, 7 nights a week. If you're having difficulty falling asleep, it should preferably include something that helps you relax.
What about for an overactive mind? What approaches would you suggest for helping someone fall asleep?
There are a whole variety of options. It can be things like reading, doing crossword puzzles, meditation, yoga. It really depends on what works for you. I actually think it would be a good idea for people to have an alarm clock to tell us when it's time to go to bed, to stop our day, put things down, put the book away, finish with whatever we're doing, and start our bedtime routine, because sleeping and getting good sleep is just as important for our health, and perhaps more important in a lot of things than we do during the day.
So what can we do if we are able to fall asleep, but the problem is we wake up a few hours later and have difficulty falling back to sleep?
In patients with insomnia, the best treatment is not a medication. It's actually called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. If I had to boil it down to its essence, it's that you don't do anything in bed except for sleep and sex. If you're having difficulty falling asleep, you get out of bed and you don't let that frustration and anxiety build up in the bed, because then you start to associate the bed with a place where you fail to sleep, and that becomes kind of a self-reinforcing kind of pattern. So you take that frustration out of bed. It seems counterintuitive to get out of bed when you're trying to sleep, but you do that, you take that frustration, you keep it out of the bed, and then you wait until you really are ready to sleep and you're feeling sleepy. You're more likely to fall asleep once you've gotten a little bit more tired and you've relaxed. You fall asleep, and then you start to associate the bed with a place where you successfully sleep, not where you fail to sleep. There's a lot more to cognitive behavioral therapy than what I just covered. That's really the bullet points. There are some online options, but really the best way to do it is with an in-person cognitive behavioral therapist who specializes in this. And fortunately, in Boulder, we have some very good options that you can find to get personalized attention to your individual problems, and they can work through the issues that you have and help give you some tips for sleeping better.
What do we need to know about blue light?
So what happens naturally when the sun goes down is that we make melatonin and we start to get ready to go to sleep. The problem with modern society is that we have these television screens, computers, iPhones that we're using, and all those have a very strong blue light spectrum, and that tricks our brain into thinking that it's daytime, and so it keeps us awake. It keeps melatonin production from happening, and it keeps us awake. So if you're having difficulty falling asleep at night, one of the things you can do is to eliminate blue light at night. Now you can do that by getting rid of the computers, TV screens, not looking at those in the few hours before you go to bed. But if you have to do that, that's part of your routine. Another way to do that is by wearing blue blocker glasses, and those are pretty easy to find on Amazon. You can get them for about $10 to $30, and you just put them on in the 2 hours or so before you go to bed if you're watching TV or using a computer.
Let's talk about melatonin. How does it work? What dosage should we start with, and when should we take it?
As I mentioned, melatonin is a hormone made by the brain that helps start the process of falling asleep. A lot of people find, though, it doesn't work, and that's because they're not taking it at the right time and potentially at the right dose. Melatonin really isn't a very effective medication at knocking you out or putting you to sleep. That's how we think of most sleep medications, is you take it at bedtime and it'll put you to sleep pretty quickly. Melatonin doesn't work like that. What it's really potent at is pulling your circadian rhythm forward. So the way you take melatonin is not at bedtime when you want to go to sleep. You actually need to take it several hours before you're going to go to bed in order to help pull things forward. So let's say you're falling asleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, but you want to go to sleep at 10 o'clock. Take a half a milligram to a milligram, but take it at 7 or 8 o'clock. And don't expect an effect that night that it's going to knock you right out like that. It'll pull that rhythm forward so that after taking it for a couple nights, you'll gradually start to fall asleep a little bit earlier every night. You still have to do the other things to prepare your brain to sleep, but melatonin is going to kind of set the stage for you to fall asleep a little bit earlier each night.
Any other sleep tips you would like us to know?
Well, I can tell you what kind of works for me. I used to have difficulty falling asleep at night. I'd often find that I was feeling a little bit warm in bed. And one of the things we know is that your body is most likely to be able to get into deep restorative sleep if your core body temperature drops a little bit. And sometimes we're under the covers and we just don't let that happen. Your optimal room temperature should be about in the mid-60s to help you to get into deep sleep. So, of course, the first thing you do is go open a window, try to get the room to cool down a little bit. What actually works for me is I get out of bed and I'll go outside. And yes, I'll do this in the middle of the winter. And I usually find that I feel like my body's cooled down a little bit. I'm usually asleep in just a couple minutes. So pay attention to your body temperature, the room temperature, get back into a warm bed, and you may just find you fall right asleep.
Thank you, Dr. Miner, for putting us on the right path for getting a good night's sleep.
Hi, I'm Connor Middelmann. I'm a nutritionist specializing in the Mediterranean diet. Before moving to Boulder 9 years ago, I lived in the southwest of France for many years. That's where I discovered the Mediterranean diet, which isn't actually a time-limited diet like a weight loss diet. It's simply the way people have always eaten around the Mediterranean Sea. Research shows that eating this way lowers our risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, various types of cancer, and many other health problems. That's because the Mediterranean diet is packed with nutrients in foods like vegetables and fruits and legumes and nuts and seeds and herbs and spices. And while it's heavily plant-based, it also includes meat, fish and seafood, cheese and yogurt, and even sweet treats, especially during the holidays. Today I want to show you some Mediterranean dishes. Not all of them traditional holiday fare, but perfect additions to your next festive meal. I'll start with a Mediterranean fish stew of the type that's typically eaten on Christmas Eve in Italy. So we're going to make the soup base in a big Dutch oven. We start with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And then we make what's called a sofrito in Italian. It's usually the base of lots of stewed dishes where you start by frying onions, garlic, carrots, and celery, or in this case, fennel. So we'll start with the onions, finely chopped carrots, and thinly sliced fennel. So we're going to cook this for about 5-7 minutes on medium-high heat. I add a bit of salt to draw out the moisture, which helps to cook the vegetables faster and also prevents them burning. I'll add the garlic as well. You can either chop it finely or just put it through a garlic press like this. So once the onions are soft and slightly caramelized, we add the herbs and spices. Once you've mixed that all nicely together, we add 2.5 cups of chicken stock. We put in some white wine, and if you don't have alcohol, that's completely fine. Just use a little more chicken broth and put in an extra squirt of lemon juice to give it the sort of acidity that the white wine would normally give it. And then we add about a cup of crushed tomatoes, about a tablespoon of tomato puree, again to intensify that tomato flavor, and then some freshly ground black pepper. And then we add, either you can use whole olives, but I like to take little shortcuts, and so I use something called tapenade, which is chopped up olives with little peppers. You can buy that in most supermarkets nowadays, black and green olives, and they taste delicious. So after about 10 minutes, the flavors have melded nicely, the fennel is soft, the carrots are soft. Test the vegetables just to make sure they're all soft, and then you're ready to add the seafood. I like to use a variety of different fish and seafood, and you can use whatever you like most. I love mussels, which are very high in omega-3 fats, as is salmon. Just a few words on shellfish. First of all, it's best to eat them during the months that have the letter R in them. So basically anytime between September and April. That's when they're at their freshest. The other thing that you should look out for is any damaged mussels like this one, or mussels that aren't quite closed should be discarded. If you have a slow cooking fish, you should start with that, like a mai or a monkfish. But the ones that I've chosen today all cook very quickly, so we're all going to put them in together. The scallops, the wild caught salmon, the shrimp, and then we're going to add the mussels. When they open, as they cook, they will open and they will release their juices into the broth, and that gives it a lovely seafood flavor. You'll know it's done when the shrimp are pink and the mussels have opened and all your white fish is sort of no longer transparent. So once the mussels have opened, you're ready to serve this. If there are any that haven't opened, again, discard them because they might not be good. And then you really just season this to taste with salt, pepper, maybe a squeeze of lemon juice, and then I just snip over a little bit of fresh parsley, and I like to garnish it with a few leftover bits of fennel weed. To complete your Mediterranean feast, I recommend that you start with a light appetizer from Spain. It's called romesco sauce, and it's a dip that you can use either to dip vegetables in or warm bread. It's made of hazelnuts and roasted peppers. For dessert, I love to serve karidopita, which is a Greek Christmas cake that's made of walnuts and almonds. It's gluten-free, it's dairy-free, it's made with olive oil. It's also low carb, and it includes lots of seasonal spices and orange zest. If you'd like to make any of these dishes, you can download the recipes from the BCH website or from my website, modernmediterranean.com, where I have plenty of other recipes too.
My name is Avani Dilger, and I started the nonprofit Natural Highs, Healthy Alternatives to Drugs and Alcohol, in Boulder, Colorado, to really make cutting-edge neuroscience and healthy alternatives to substances available to people from all backgrounds. We actually brought in acupuncturists into our program to provide AcuDetox for people who otherwise could never afford acupuncture. And so AcuDetox has been a part of our program for the last 12 years, and we are so happy that we could provide it to a lot of young people in the Boulder community. AcuDetox is an ear acupuncture treatment where we treat 5 points in the ear, and these points in the ear are connected to major meridians in the body, and they're very balancing. You know, it works really well for people who are in pretty intense places with anxiety or trauma or depression or having sleep difficulties. But then it's also just good for somebody who's just stressed, who just, you know, feels like I just need to chill out for a moment and have some support. So it doesn't matter where you fall on the spectrum. AcuDetox is balancing really for all kinds of different issues. So we're providing AcuDetox every Tuesday between 5:30 and 6:30 at the September Outdoor School. So that is on the very west end of Boulder, and it's a beautiful setting because it's out in nature, and literally people all ages, all backgrounds come, some with their families, and you can literally be out in the beautiful, you know, right below the mountains. You can be outside and you can get AcuDetox, and it's a community setting. So we really like that because it also connects people from different backgrounds, and we're currently working with lots of different places in Boulder who want to offer it. So our hope is to make it available throughout the week, you know, on different times and different days, so that people with different schedules can access it. And all of the AcuDetox that we make available is free or for donation, because we really don't want to create create any obstacles. This is an amazing resource that can really help people feel better and deal with stress better and deal with trauma better.
So Natural Highs is a nonprofit that focuses on healthy alternatives to drugs and alcohol, but it also really focuses on addressing mental health from a more holistic perspective. So instead of focusing on like the symptoms that might result in addiction or anxiety or depression, it really focuses on the disease inside of the person. So like the pain that causes these symptoms. So I personally found AcuDetox when I was about 2 months into my sobriety, and it allowed me to come back into my body and feel something that felt good. And I think that it's important for people to feel empowered by natural remedies rather than feeling like their only alternative is to use external things like drugs and alcohol.
My name is Libby Stout. I'm a board-certified addiction psychiatrist. AcuDetox is a way to access your own natural healing abilities. And what we talk about is how the needles access your own natural energies, which is called Qi, and it helps bring Qi to the surface, and it helps heal you from the inside out. So it really, like when somebody says, well, what's this going to do for me? We can't really tell them because we don't know. It's your own body that is going to decide what it's going to do for you. And I've had this experience where I'll put the needles in and then I always say, is everything okay? Do you feel okay? I've had several people go, my headache is gone. I mean, it's like, it's just gone. It just disappeared. And I said, that's awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. And now, for a chance to win a complimentary massage from Bodywork for Liberation in Lafayette, answer the following question correctly at BeWellWin.com to be entered into our drawing. The lucky winner will be selected on December 27th. Here goes. Name 3 tips for getting a better night's sleep. Send in your answers, and until next time, everyone, stay healthy, be well, and happy holidays.